discuss issue in the police department. There's no vote to be had. So moving right along, can we all stand if able and pledge allegiance to the flag? Oh. Okay, let's kick it off with our ambulance service report. Thanks for coming.
Good evening. Wagner from Tower Direct. Month of February. Month of February, service-wide, we had 867 calls for a total of 2,325 for the year. And in Cumru Township specifically, 169 calls for a year-to-date total of 467. Top call types are ALS medical 67, BLS medical 22, BLS trauma 13, class 4 mental 9, assist, cardiac respiratory arrest, and unconscious at 7, ALS trauma at 6, MVA unknown injuries at 3, and MVA with injuries at 2. 69% of those calls were transported to the hospital. 89% of those went to Reading, 9% to St. Joe's. And yeah, average shoot time, which is dispatched to en route, is 1 minute and 12 seconds. Average response time, which is dispatched on scene, is 8 minutes and 59 seconds. An average total call time of 1 hour and 1 minute and 56 seconds. What questions, if any, can I answer for you?
Lisa, thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion.
I'll second. Tanya seconded. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, signify by saying no. Okay, moving along to public comment. We'll start. We have a resident, Mr. Schmel, who is on the agenda. I'm just gonna put that at the end so that you have a little, because we wanted to make sure you had adequate time to discuss. We also have a couple other folks here to speak on the agenda. You might see we have a couple planning and zoning issues. We have Brian Folk, I believe, from representing the Newcastle Lawn and Landscape Phase 2 proposal. Did you have anything you wanted to speak on behalf of the plan, or?
No, I'm just here to answer any questions when you get to that.
Okay, all right. Thank you. And then we have some folks here on behalf of the zoning hearing board application 840. Is there any one who wanted to speak on that? It's at the very end
Greg,
of the agenda.
Did you want to talk about this, the zoning application for your client? Oh, and hi, Mark. I didn't see you.
Yeah, it's at the very end of the agenda, so I figured that we could just get you right along here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mark Cuck and Greg Bojo on behalf of JAJD Properties. This is regarding 4119 New Holland Road. We had attended the prior month's zoning hearing board, and there was a letter that came from the commissioners, and we wanted to address any questions or concerns that you might have. Mr. Boja is handing out basically a sketch plan that we would intend to present to the zoning hearing board. We had originally proposed an outside storage area that was a little bit closer to New Holland Road. We took a look at that and basically moved that back further into the property, kind of adjacent to the Mail Shark property line. Thought it was a better place, better location. You can't see it from the road. As the commissioners are taking a look at that plan, just wanted to kind of orient you. We basically have Mail Shark to the west, Dutch Valley Door to the east, and then the European building to the south on the other side of the road. So we did attend the planning commission a week or so ago. A couple of questions were answered, and essentially commission thanked us for attending and sent us on our merry way. So we just thought it was wise to come in front of the commissioners, see if there were any questions that we could answer, and go from there. So.
Yeah, if the board remembers, this was an application that was submitted to go before the zoning hearing board, where the planning commission, because of the timing of the submission of the application, the planning commission did not get a chance to review the plans, and neither did the Board of Commissioners. And so you authorized the township to send a letter to the applicant, well, actually to the zoning hearing board, indicating the displeasure with the planning commission not having had a chance to review it and the board not having had a chance to review it, to be able to determine whether they wanted to take any position on that application. And so the applicant decided to not move forward with the zoning hearing that night, to continue that zoning hearing to the next zoning hearing meeting date and present their plans to the planning commission and to this board to make sure that they're following the procedure that this board wanted to see.
That's right, Kelsey. Thank you very much. And just so the board is clear, there was no intent to do anything other than we just had a deadline and we submitted the application and it ended up getting scheduled that fast. So there was nothing nefarious, just so everybody's clear.
And the planning commission didn't take any position on the project. They reviewed it. There were some questions asked and answered, but ultimately, I don't know if they recommended anything or just.
They did not. They basically just said, thank you for coming. We appreciate your time.
That's right. Yep.
So I see two buildings, but only one of them had the equipment in it, right? But you want both for the storage? Is that what this is saying?
So no, the exterior storage that we're proposing is.
If I can help you with that, the white box that showed the outside storage was what was proposed in front of the zoning hearing board. And as we looked at things and talked about what the planning commission might like ahead of time, we looked at it like, you know, if we put the red box and moved it further back, it'd be further away from the road. Nobody would really see it at that point. And we thought that was probably better for the township and anybody else, is they would view it. So we moved that back. And at this point, the applicant would like to go ahead and use the red box area instead of the white box, which was originally submitted.
I drive by there quite often because even if it was closer, it's difficult to see up there unless you're
Yeah.
really trying to look. Back here, I don't think anyone could see at
yeah.
all.
It's a good 8 or 10 feet up. So you're right. It's tough to actually see back up in there to what's even there. But so when he puts it back and then it's behind the other existing building that's there, I don't think really anybody would ever see it driving by.
I don't think there's any homes to that point around there either, right? Like, clearly they're around here, but behind there, I don't think there's anything back
No.
there.
It's
Yeah.
Fields.
And it's adjacent to its two businesses, Mail Shark and Dutch Valley Door.
I personally don't have an issue with it.
Nor do I. I'll certainly defer to our planning commission and zoning hearing board. I think I can say for myself, I appreciate you guys coming, and I think there's just a little bit of concern to make sure everybody who should have eyes on and be involved in the process was. So thank you for
We
that.
understand. And
Yeah.
You're very welcome. Appreciate it. Okay. Well,
The
thank
board
you so much
doesn't,
for your time.
just to answer your question, Greg, the board doesn't get to decide the zoning issues. The board can just decide whether or not they want to support the application, oppose it, or just do nothing and let the zoning board do its job.
So with those options, are we going with the latter? Is that what I heard you saying?
My feeling is to
support it?
just let the zoning hearing board and the planning commission do their jobs.
Well, Alicia's
I
saying
just wanted
something
to make sure
different.
the process was working as intended.
Well,
So
I
thank
would
you.
choose to support it, but if,
Yeah, I personally, it looks acceptable, but as Andy was saying, I think I'd prefer to let the zoning hearing board do their job and kind of look at the details and just make sure, everything is hunky dory. But otherwise, I think it looks good. Appreciate you coming in.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your thoughts and concerns. Have a good evening.
Okay, back to our regular scheduled programming. Thank you guys for coming in. We have just Mr. Cope remaining who signed up to speak?
That was Mark.
Oh. Patrick Cope? Oh. Yeah, please, if you, well, no, yeah, if you're comfortable speaking your address into the microphone, or you can just give it to the secretary, it's your choice, but.
1615 Brook Boulevard.
Okay.
Have a sense of high rise.
And it's Mr. Patrick Cope?
Yes,
Okay, go ahead.
I already see that you have a traffic study there at Brook Boulevard and Summit. Well, the traffic study is one thing, but I'm in that intersection 2 houses down from the corner for 48 years almost. And my concern is the safety from the people coming from the high-rise area, whether they're walking, driving, in a wheelchair, which my son does quite often. You can't see up to the right when there's cars coming. Just the other day, I pulled out thinking I didn't see anything, and all of a sudden this car comes down. We met, we both put our brakes on, he went around me, that was fine. Cars you can fix. It's a person, you're in big trouble. There's got to be something done there, either the parking on that Harding going up to the right, or, and I know nobody likes to hear this, 2 more stop signs to slow the people down. You won't stop them. People will roll through all the time. But that has been a problem. My son had a couple of shortcomings. And over the years, there's a lot of accidents that never got reported, which again, is the safety issue. The safety issue is people coming across. My son told me just the other day, a couple of times his life came up to his face thinking, this is it, the car's gonna hit me. When you get out there so far, you cannot see to go the rest of the way. Either the parking's too much on that street, or somehow we gotta slow the traffic down, because you don't wait till it's too late and say, well, gee, we should have done something. I'm just concerned about the safety of that after all these years. And now my son goes up there pretty often. He's handicapped, he lives with us. Someday we gotta find a place for him, but still he's there. And my concern is, what can we do about that to remedy that safety problem? The traffic study, I don't know if they get into that, but I know that the safety problem is bigger than any of the other issues that might go on there, from parking to whatever.
Thank you, Mr. Cope. Mr. Agoski, you mentioned there's a traffic study. Are you familiar?
Sure, I can actually talk a little bit about the study. It's under my report, but since it's been brought up by this gentleman, we did conduct a traffic study. The police actually provided us some crash data, took some traffic volumes, speed data. We also evaluated it, and our recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to make it an all-way stop condition so it's a 4-way stop sign. And then in addition to an all-way, we're also recommending establishing crosswalks with a proper hatching for increased visibility, because we have 388 curb ramps. So this will allow a person to safely make cross the street with the stop conditions, as well as additional signage along Harding to warn motorists that we do have an advance stop sign condition. We did take a look at this. I understand what you're saying. It is a safety issue. It did meet the warrants for an all-way stop sign. When we do a study, PennDOT establishes and the Federal Highway Association establishes what they call warrants. These warrants must be met for us to be able to establish an all-way stop sign, and also for the police to enforce the all-way stop conditions. Since we looked at these warrants, 4 of the warrants are met, and all it takes is 1 warrant. However, with the data and our evaluation tonight, I'm making a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to consider establishing that as an all-way stop condition with the additional safety enhancements. They'll have to go through, if they choose to tonight, they'll need to go through the proper ordinance and so forth. But that's my recommendation to the board this evening. So hopefully that'll improve the situation that you just expressed.
Well, it will, a 4-way stop, and
Unfortunately, if it did meet the warrants, my other recommendation would be restrict parking, only because I understand what you're saying about the line of sight. But in this situation, with the proper paint markings and the stop signs and the stop ahead signs, we're hoping that now this will allow for people to have a safe passage. It is an area that has a lot of traffic, especially during the peak hours, which is AM and PM when school, and also you have a lot of walkers, bicyclists and so forth. So it's a very, I'll say, not congested, but it's a very popular intersection with traffic and so forth. And I do understand, I witnessed some motorists don't stop or are at higher speeds. And that speed data that we received from the police was very helpful. The crash data was very helpful because it's one of the warrants that we take into consideration. When there are crashes, PennDOT will actually allow 3 within a 36-month period, which we did meet that warrant. So hopefully this will improve the situation for safety as well as traffic flow in that area. And just, you know, once you know, we did take in consideration what residents were concerned about, and hopefully this will be an improvement.
It sounds like you would have done it if I was the only one in charge of it. It's pretty much what I would have done. There's a couple ways to do it, but like I say, you're not going to stop everyone, but you're going to slow them down. I've seen them go down through there 40 and 50.
Right.
And, you know, if you step out in front of one of them,
And
you
the
might
nice
be meeting the maker sooner than you'd like.
And the one thing we want to make sure is it's warranted, because then police enforcement, they can ticket people who are running a stop sign. And when it goes in front of the district justice, then there's a study that was completed in an ordinance that makes it more enforceable. Always stop signs get challenged in court a lot, only especially if they're not properly posted. But in this situation, we do meet the warrants, and it's our opinion that we're making that recommendation this evening.
Yeah, in a lot of cases like this one, it's just more than the amount of cars that go through. It's the safety, and you've already covered that. So that sounds like a plan.
We're hoping with the crosswalks too, that'll help. We're going to put high visibility crosswalks with the hatching. That'll help with the headlights at night to see this, and also with stop bars and some signage. So combination of both, hopefully that'll make the situation improved.
Sounds like we can't ask for more than that. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
While we're on the topic, Mr. Rogowski, was there anything further to explain to the board with regard to your recommendation? I was going to suggest perhaps we can just move to a vote unless there's deliberation.
Sure. I just wanted the board to realize we did look at this carefully, and we did take into account the police data, and it was very helpful. We follow our study in accordance with the Federal Highway and PennDOT criteria. We did look at the geometric configuration of the roadway, the width, and so forth. And in addition, we also looked at the parking along Summit and Brook as well. Currently, right now, it is restricted. We did conduct a parking study. There's nine conditions that have to be met for parking to be restricted in Summit. Two of those restrictions were met, and our recommendation is to have parking remain restricted for safety purposes. We've made several observations. The cartway width is a little bit narrow in accordance with the Federal Highway and PennDOT's center line distance of having 18 feet. In this situation, you do have conflicting motorists that travel on that road. The geometry of that roadway, there's some curves, horizontal curves. You have a lot of traffic flow. It's for safety. It's our opinion that the parking remain restricted, and also to install the all-way stop sign at Brook and Harding if the Board of Commissioner so desires.
So there's two kind of separate issues there, two different studies, right? I think we crossed over into the Summit.
Yeah, sorry. I thought I'd lead into it because they kind of go hand in hand. They were taken into consideration, even though they're two different studies. This evening, action doesn't necessarily need to be made on Summit since it's already restricted. It was more of a feasibility study that we conducted. However, this evening, the board would need, if the board chooses so, I recommend that they vote on posting of an all-way stop sign and then establishing an ordinance and going through the proper advertising and so forth.
So just since we're on Summit a little bit here, Joe, is there a possibility to allow parking on just one side of Summit with what you saw?
We took a look at that, and my recommendation is not to. Summit is a very highly traveled road, and for cars to maneuver, we really looked at this carefully. To allow parking, this would cause the lane width of that area to be very narrow, which would force another vehicle in the opposing direction. And that's one of the criterias for restriction of parking is not having two cars in conflict that are opposing of each other. That could cause an accident. And looking at some of the data, the crash records, we've had some accidents at the intersection of Summit and Lancaster, as well as Brook and Harding. And it's our engineering opinion that we recommend parking be restricted on both sides.
Is there any further questions, or do I hear a motion to move forward with the recommendations from the engineer?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed by saying no. All right. Thank you.
So what needs to happen there is,
We would need to do an amendment to the traffic ordinance, which I can draft and Joe can get me the specs on where everything is going to be added. And then we would advertise it appropriately for an ordinance enactment for next meeting.
Are you gonna also talk about Elkins, or are we waiting for the,
Well, because he was here to speak about that, I figured we could
so you'll
just do
take another motion then, and because if she's doing the traffic ordinance, she'll probably do them all. Thank you very much.
I was gonna say, on Elkins, Bruce Badgley is here. He did a little bit of,
Oh,
polling
okay.
for us on that.
Yeah, we could move the.
If you want to move it just so, Bruce can come up.
Any
we can-
objections, or did you have anything you wanted?
Do we want to let Joe kind of talk about the study first and then Bruce can
Yeah,
say what he
please.
found?
Sorry to throw a curveball at you, Joe.
Sure. As you recall, we had, this gentleman has concerns about the safety and especially speed and also parking along Elkins Avenue. The board directed us to conduct a parking study and give a little bit of a background. Same criteria would follow that we followed in Summit Avenue when we're looking at PennDOT criteria. We're also looking at the geometric configuration of the road as well as the traffic flow and conflicting movements. The existing cartway width is 34 feet from curb face to curb face, and the road is posted at a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit. There's nine conditions that need to be met, or one of the 9 conditions that need to be met to restrict parking on a road. We looked at 3 of them, and 2 of those conditions were met. And one of them is the distance between the center line pavement marking or face of curb is 18 feet. Has to be 18 feet or greater in this situation. We're 17 feet. Also, the street width isn't such that if vehicles are parking along one or both sides of the edge of the roadway, 2 vehicles cannot move abreast of one another in the same or opposite direction. We did evaluate this at peak hours where the school traffic is high. I attached photos to our report where you can see actually school buses that are parked there. So it is a very congested area. It does meet the conditions for restricted parking. Couple caveats I'll add to our study that I mentioned is yes, it does. However, we did make an observation. A lot of these vehicles are from the dwellings, from those homes. They have multiple cars. A lot of them are parked on the street. I think if the board decides if they want to consider parking, it may be, our opinion to outreach, to have some type of meeting with the residents to inform them of this condition, because it's going to create a problem where you're going to have the parking being transferred to another street or so forth. Because most homes nowadays have 2 to 3 cars per dwelling. And in this situation, you can see where a lot of the homeowners, it's their cars that are being parked on the street. So I caution the board, if even though it meets the conditions of restriction of parking, given the fact that there could be some public, I'll say outreach or public relations that might need to be made with the residents so that they're informed that this happens.
So this is where Bruce comes in. So Bruce, I'll let you take it from here with what you found.
Yeah, I met with basically everybody that could on the street Sunday afternoon.
And that was what, 20 out of 22, right, Bruce?
Yeah, 20 out of 22, and that included some of the a couple houses on Harding as well, you know, where obviously the overflow as well. The interesting thing is it was split right down the middle, 10-10. As far as 10 households didn't want any parking restriction and 10 households would want parking restrictions. Now, the overriding factor as far as why people didn't want parking restriction is because they feared that if something did change, they wouldn't be able to park in front of their house. So it wasn't the fact that necessarily, you know, the parking problem, it was, you know, somewhat of a me issue there. But anyway, and I met with them in their home. You know, we all talked as neighbors. It was really good discussion. And you know, with that, I told him, you know, exactly what it was that the board was considering, you know, parking restriction. And as you said, it's a very emotional issue, clearly. A lot of the residents, in fact, I think everybody talked about the speed at which people travel on Elkins Avenue. And also there were some other concerns voiced about you know, what Community Days now is inflicting on the people of Elkins Avenue, and maybe finding some better lines of communication to voice concerns, you know, related to the Community Days there. But it was split right down the middle. And, you know, I mean, truth be told, I mean, I live on Elkins Avenue myself, and I want parking restriction because I can't park in front of my house now. So what have I got to lose? And in fact, I rarely travel on Elkins Avenue because I personally feel sometimes that it's unsafe to travel at the high traffic areas. So just to give you, you know, the bird's eye view of what that community faces. And you think, well, you know, 20 households, there's still a lot of people in there though. As you said, everybody's got multiple cars. I actually have 3. So I think my neighbor across the street has 4. Some of the people there, of why the parking is tough on the street there too, is there's a restriction that you can't expand your, you know, your driveway item to more than 1 vehicle. So people are basically, they've got one way to get in their garage, but then they'll take one side of it and expand it so that they can get 2 vehicles on there. But that might be, you know, part of the issue there too, is there's a restriction on the homeowner that they can't, you know, park any more than 1 in there. But I think that we fulfilled you know, what you asked for, kind of an informal discussion, neighbor with neighbor. And I think that was beneficial too, that you know, we all kind of aired our grievances. So
And I really appreciate it, Bruce. Thanks for taking the time to do that. Joe, on this one, same question as Summit. Can we restrict one side?
it's something we could look into, restricting one side as long as we have 18 feet of usable roadway. We should be okay to allow for 2 cars to safely pass each other. That is something that we can consider.
That was one of the items that I addressed with them, is that for the people that voted in favor of the parking restriction, whether they would want one side or both sides, and every single person said that they only wanted one side for parking restriction, not both.
I mean, typically an 8-foot area width off the curb, typical parking space might be parallel, might be 22 to 26 feet. In a residential development like this, it's probably closer because you're trying to maximize. Plus, you have driveways and you're trying to stay away from some of their driveway. You can look at restricting on one side. It's something that if the township could always consider doing on a temporary basis to see how it works out. That's something that I've seen other communities do, where we post no parking. You can always lift the restriction. Study says it's warranted, but you don't necessarily have to do it. But it is something, parking is always a sensitive topic for residents because, you know, their vehicles, but it's something that can be looked at with doing a restriction on one side. There is a small section I failed to mention is that is already restricted. I believe it's like 100, and I think I have it in my report, 110, maybe 120 feet. That's already right close to Harding. that's already restricted on the one side. That may be a good side to restrict parking on, just to.
So there's one, the side of the street, and it's the side of the street that there's definitely, it's not equal on both sides. You know, there is one side that, you know, that only has a few, and there's others that have many. So, and the other thing too is that, you know, there was something in the report about that at least for the consultant, that they didn't address the time element related, the time element of that you were only going to restrict parking, you know, for during certain hours.
Yes, we did look at that. In this situation, we've really looking at our observation of the traffic data. It seemed to be, I'll call it the school peak in the morning. So it's hard to impose a time restriction. For instance, West Reading at one point did that over by Reading Hospital because the shifts and the parking. They went with permitted parking. I'm not sure if I would advise that at this point. Permitted parking has a lot of complications and a lot of issues. Time restriction can be also the same type of problem. It's really an enforcement issue. It's very hard to enforce. A lot of times, and one of the things is sometimes you get people who park there temporarily for a half hour. That's considered standing. Some people can run their car and be along the curb. That's why they get stopping, standing, and no parking. That's been already challenged in court with the proper signage. I've had that in a community, in a college community, where you have to have no standing because that's considered somebody in a car parked but running.
Yeah.
And it gets a little complicated. So the time period we really felt like at this point was not a viable option at this time. I think if it was something where traffic volumes were constant during the day, then I think I'd advise the township to look into possibly doing a time restriction and just allowing it after 5 or whatever. But in this situation, it seemed to coincide more with school traffic and so forth, around like 3-ish and in the morning. And we observed school buses as well. It's a very high volume road for school. I mean, it takes you right to the school, and unfortunately, it's being used by a lot of people. And I don't disagree with you one bit that it is seeing a lot more increase in traffic, but that's the reasoning behind why we didn't recommend a time restriction at this point. If we knew it was an issue all day long, and we had observations from the police saying that it's every day, it's just a mess, we would probably take that in consideration, or at least make a recommendation to the board. But at this point, we're just more or less looking at the peaks, and it just seemed like it wasn't enough to I'll say warrant that time restriction.
And one of the other things that Bruce and I talked about, we said, well, if we could do one side, which side would it be? And I think Bruce's comments was the side that he lives on would get restricted. So if you're standing at the school and you're looking towards Giant, it would be the side on the left side. I'm not sure directionality, what that is, north, south, east, west. But hopefully that gives you an idea of which side it would be.
I think that's actually the same side where we already have about 100 and something.
Yeah,
restricted up towards Giant, where almost before where Elkins turns private. Elkins is we can only restrict up to a certain point because the rest of it's a private road. Even though we co-own that traffic signal with Shillington Borough, we still don't own the road, but the rest of it we do.
Yeah, and I forgot about the fact that the driver's license branch is up there. So on weekends, even you have to be careful. And I've seen some of the drivers practicing in my in front of my house with my cars out there. That's a scary feeling. So
yeah, and I can say, Mark and I, we were there. We were down at Bruce's house, and we saw, like, when 2 cars were coming down, particularly if they were larger cars, they weren't getting by. Somebody was stopping and somebody else was going there. So there's clearly an issue there. And I think the point raised about the school buses kind of elevates the issue a little bit. It's a significant safety issue, in my opinion. The public's split on it. Thanks again for checking on that, Bruce. My suggestion would be to restrict just the one side, which is whatever that left side is that Bruce lives on over there. Now, whether it's temporary or permanent, to Joe's point, we can discuss that, but I would suggest to the board that we look at restricting that, whatever the left side is when you're facing the Giant would be.
Is this another situation where we need to advertise and go through the process?
I think what Joe said was that he would need to actually look into whether that's possible first or not.
I can confirm it. And it would be just an addition to our traffic ordinance. If it's acceptable to restrict it, I'll call it the left side looking towards Giant, then the traffic ordinance itself would just need to be updated and ordinance be passed. Or the traffic, I guess, Kelsey, the traffic ordinance would just need to be updated to reflect.
Yeah, I
the
would
traffic
just draft an
conditions.
amendment to the traffic ordinance for, in the parking restriction section and then for this, stop section for the Harding and Brook. So we could do it in the same amendment if the board so decided to do that. Yeah, ultimately, they'll need to vote on enacting the ordinance, but if the board wants to include the restriction on Elkins in the draft of the ordinance, you know, maybe you want to vote on that to make sure the board's in favor of that before I draft it.
Yeah, could we do like a subject to that? We would say yes to restricting that side, but if Joe finds that we can't for whatever reason, then we pull back on it, but you know, we could decide whether or not we want to do it here tonight.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. And if Joe reaches out to me and says it's not possible, I just won't include it in the amendment.
Perfect.
Here,
The idea of Joe's suggestion of maybe doing it temporary to see, you know, since it was split 50-50.
I mean, we can actually post it with the signage, and if it becomes a problem, I've seen other communities where we've lifted that restriction. I think it's easier. Parking is a lot more easy to restrict than a regulatory sign such, well, it is a regulatory sign, but a traffic restriction stuff such as a stop sign and so forth is harder to do. But if you can always post it, no parking, and you know, give it 6 months or so or another school season and see how it works. And if it works well, then you still have it adopted in your traffic ordinance. You can always change your traffic ordinance.
So Joe, are you suggesting to include it in the amendment to the traffic ordinance so it's enforceable? And then
Yes.
if the board decides, forget about this, we'll just amend it again to remove it and revoke it?
Yes, I think that would be the easiest way, is just amend the traffic ordinance, and then we can always monitor the situation. If it's not an issue down the line, then we can just leave it remain. If not, we can always take action at a future meeting to lift the restriction or remove that no parking area.
Does that work for you, Tanya?
Yes, that was.
any other questions? Do I hear a motion to amend the traffic ordinance to restrict traffic on the west side of Elkins Avenue, as stated by Mr. Agoski?
Go ahead,
I'll make the motion.
and I'll second it.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, sorry for the holdup. There was a lot more there before we came back around. But now the time is yours. Moving on, Mr. Schmel had reached out to Patty. And so we figured we'd get you on here and let you have some time to talk.
1028 Freemansville Road. Like to also mention, in May, it'll be 40 years we're a resident of Cumru Township. It's been a pretty good experience. But now we have this issue at 1021 Freemansville Road. The property is owned by Jason Steiner. And for the past decade or so, he's done no maintenance, no repairs. And about 13 months ago, he abandoned the property and moved out. Now the structure is collapsing. The property's all overgrown with vegetation. You know, the windows are open, the doors are open, exposed to the elements, rodents are getting in there. And just last week, I noticed on the east side of the property, about 20 feet from the house, there was a dug well there. It's 70 feet deep, and the wood covering on it collapsed. So now we have an issue that the 70-foot deep pits there exposed, that if someone would walk in, you know, they'd fall in there. Now, luckily, we don't have any children down there in that area. You know, when I was a kid, we'd see something like that. We'd want to explore, and, you know, they'd get in there, they'd probably get, hurt or killed. So, the other issue is with this property, that has an energized electric service overhead. And now that the structure is collapsing, I'm concerned that that weatherhead's going to break off and the service comes in across the street. And then that cable's going to drop in the street or in that brush and what have you, and there's going to be a fire. And there's another adjacent property owner at 1007, which is very close. And then if the winds or whatever were blowing from the east or south, it would probably drive them flames over to that house and his house would burn down. Now, I'm 500 feet away from this. I'm up on the hill at 1028. I'm not affected by this so much other than when I exit my driveway, I don't want to see this blighted property there. And it's not fair to those 4 people down there or any of us, as a matter of fact. And I don't know if you're familiar with where that is. We're a quarter mile in from Route 10. And that would be on the south side, I'm on the north side of Freemansville Road. So let me go back a little bit. In October of last year, I called William Frymore and notified him of this. That morning, he came down and met with him, and we walked around the property and looked at it. And I told him about this energized service and what have you. He said he was going to look into it. He was going to call Med Ed and have that service terminated. Nothing was done. Now I find out today he's there taking pictures and so on, I guess, in case you question him tomorrow. But photos don't show it.
He's here.
All you got to do is go there and take a look around and see what we're dealing with. The deck's collapsed, there's roof structure damage, wall structure damage, and so on. I mean, it's uninhabitable. And there's no reason to have electric service there. And Jason Steiner, he's still around. He has a business and he lives on Maple Grove Road, I think. And he needs to be held accountable, either restore the building. There's also a detached garage there and a shed, all the structural damage. You either have him restore the property or have it demolished. But the township got to take a stand on blighted properties. You don't want this to continue in other areas. So I'm asking the commissioners to help us out and pressure this individual. He's working. It's not that some elderly person's there that has no funds to get the building back in order. So
I was going to say, do you want Willie?
Do you have any questions?
Well, I can tell you, I've been there. I actually drove by there this weekend because it's not far from my house. I'm trying to think the most politically correct way of saying it, but I understand your concern is what I would say. So you can read into that how you like.
There's 4 of us down there that are senior citizens in our 70s and 80s. And at one point, maybe we want to sell our property. And, that's going to be a deterrent to people want to buy a property with a blighted property right there and so on. And it affects the resale value of our properties. More of the 4 down there than where I am up top. I'm pretty far away from where this is. But my driveway exits right in front of this 1021.
Yeah, I guess I'll take it a little bit further to be a little more clear. I would leave that up to the professionals, Kelsey and Willie, to determine if it meets the definition for blighted property. But I can certainly sympathize with your concerns. When you go by, it doesn't look like it's in very good shape.
I understand that the county has to get involved in whatever. But what I'm saying to you people is pressure this Jason Steiner and get on him and cite him for all the violations that exist. And we're in the second cycle down there of the septic system inspection. That property's never been done in the second cycle. So all these things exist, fine, do what you have to do to get him moving, to do something there. It boggles my mind. If you have an asset worth something, why would you just let it deteriorate like that and walk away? And the taxes are being paid to you people because he still has a mortgage on it and it's in his mortgage.
So, Mr. Schmill, I can tell you that this kind of issue isn't not a novel issue to any municipality. It plagues many, many municipalities. I can tell you also that this is the first time I'm hearing about this particular property, and I think the board is as well. I know Willie's here. I don't know if you have anything to comment, if you've been out there, or if it's been placarded as uninhabitable.
Willie, do you mind coming up to the mic? Thank you.
When I send letters to Mr. Steiner, his mailing address is 1021 Freemansville Road. I have no other address for him to send him any. I have to go what the county has. The county has him living at. Right here it is, sir. 1021 Freemansville Road is his mailing address where I send stuff. Correct.
That's okay. That's all right. We're here to try to help you. We're not here to try to fight you. So
But my job is to go by what the county has as the parcel record of address and sending, that's where I send letters to.
Is the place that uninhabitable that it could be placarded as uninhabitable? So at least we have that
It
warning.
can
sign
be,
up.
I'm working with the Blighted Property Review Committee with the county, which takes forever because I have one on Old Lancaster Pike I've been working on for 4 years, which they finally took over today. I had a meeting with them today.
Okay. As far as securing the thing that concerns me, I think, is the well, because it's a. health
Yeah,
and
I
safety.
saw the hole today.
Are we
I'm
able
just-
to secure that? And
I guess Public Works would have to do something, maybe put some kind of metal plate over it. You know, and I did call the electric company last year. They will not turn the electric off because I am not the owner of the property.
if the board wants, I can escalate this by reaching out to Mr. Steiner through legal means and send him a letter and try to escalate it a little bit further.
I mean, if I'm obligated to send it to an address that someone knows where he's living, I can, but according to the codes and stuff like that, I have to send it to the address on record.
Yeah, I understand. I want to see if I can maybe try to get his attention and potentially have at least him come secure health and safety issues. The blight issue, if you're already working with the county, that takes time.
Oh,
That place is not going to get demolished tomorrow or next year or probably the year after that.
Yeah.
And the township isn't going to go in and spend taxpayer money demolishing a private property. Unfortunately, that's not something.
First of all, if you want to contact business, he has a business called Sunrise Landscape. And also, if you look on the county assessment website, he's living at a property at, I think it's 938 Maple Grove Road. So check into those things. And also, a number of years ago, I owned a property in the city of Reading, and there was an unsafe electric service across the street. I contacted MedEd, they connected me to the proper individual. The next morning, they had a supervisor there. He noted there was an unsafe situation. Within an hour, service was terminated.
Well, that surprises me with MedEd.
But I'm concerned about the fire situation. I mean, I don't want to see Henry Messner's house burned down. I mean, it's a simple thing to do. You know, I think the fire, when they go out to a fire with their fire companies, they sever the cables so the firefighters don't get electrocuted. They cut the cables. So your fire chief could get involved in that and have the service terminated.
When there's a fire at a property, they do not cut the cables. They call the electric company. They have these smart meters now where they can turn it off. They can turn the power off at their location, MedEd and PPL. That's why they have these smart meters now. And Jim Beam, fire chief there, can tell you, they don't cut cables when there's a fire at a house.
I've seen them on TV cutting cables.
Don't believe everything you see on
Well,
TV.
I think,
No, not in real life.
yeah.
I don't know, Kelsey,
think-
if you want to reach out to
Yeah,
that
go ahead.
address.
I'll work with you.
Yeah.
I'll reach out to you, try to get whatever file you have on this property, and then I'll reach out to him.
Yeah, because
And we'll just escalate it a little bit further to try to help out Mr. Schmale.
Okay, thanks.
You know, I never anticipated should use taxpayer dollars to demolish this building. What I'm saying to you is that Jason Steiner is alive and well and working. Pressure him to take care of all this. You have the power to do that. I'm not asking you to pay him. I should have paid them.
And I think the board agrees that we will. This is just the first time it's been brought to the board's attention, so we can't do anything we don't really know about.
As far as this property or another property?
This particular one, we have escalated other blighted properties. Some of them end up getting taken care of and some of them don't. It just depends on, you know, how.
That's gotta be that.
Yep, that's, if the board authorizes me, that's what I'll do.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
please do.
It's good.
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing this to us. Sounds like we're gonna see what we can do and try to get it worked out. Yeah. All right. Anything else? I think we got everybody who signed up for public comment and everybody who is here for.
The only other person that's here, Glenn, has volunteered to be the Civil Service Board, the alternate, if we wanted to talk about that. Oh, because he's on the vacancy board?
I don't
I
see
don't
why.
think that it precludes him from being on the civil service board if he's on the vacancy board now.
I mean,
I
usually
think
we have
if you were on the vacancy board and a vote came up for the Civil Service Commission, you would just recuse yourself in that specific instance. No,
Yeah, I don't know how they would ever
if there was a conflict. Okay. We'll come back to you, Glenn. Happy St. Patrick's Day. All right, let's move. While Kelsey's looking into that, Greg, do you mind jumping into the economic development stuff?
Sure. So we have a couple different things going on here. The first one is the data center overlay. So what we have before tonight is the final version that the board will review for authorization to advertise for a public hearing for the data center overlay. The way the process kind of works is we get that final version in, we review that. If we are collectively happy with that, we'll set a hearing, and then the hearing will commence in just past 30 days. I guess it has to have 30 days of being open, that anyone could then show up for the hearing and say whatever they like to say about the overlay, and then we will eventually go on to decide whether or not to actually implement it. In terms of the overlay itself, let's talk a little bit about what it is and what it isn't. So what it isn't is a plan for a data center. That would be, if there would be a developer that wanted to submit a plan, that would happen at a later date. They would go through the normal process to submit a plan, but this is not a plan for a data center. This is an ordinance that outlines how data centers would potentially be built in and where in Cumru Township. Also, what it's not is some sort of introduction of a new type of building into the community that wasn't there before. So anybody, as of the way it stands today, somebody could come in and apply for a use exemption in our industrial area to build a data center. We have that being bandied about, frankly, in the Flying Hills area. What this data center overlay does is basically say that where we want it, let me back up a little bit. We can't say that we can't build data centers in Cumru Township. That would be exclusionary zoning. So that is illegal. We can't do that. But what we can say is this is where you can build them. So the area that we chose when we were drafting this was the area down by the old Titus station. We basically said that would be the best area to build one if we had to pick a place to build one in the area. The next part of what the overlay does is it gives a whole list of conditions that says these are the things that you need to abide by if we were to consider conditional use for a data center to be built in Cumru Township. Those things focus on things like water, electric, and noise, the common things that people frequently talk about when it comes to data centers. It puts protections in there and says, here's what you need to adhere to if you're going to be able to do that, basically. So if we didn't put this in place, what we would have is current day, which somebody could come in, apply for a use exception to our zoning hearing board. It could be granted, and then there's no rules. I shouldn't say that there's no rules, but there's no rules specific to the modern types of data centers that we're having today. So that's what we're trying to avoid by putting this in place. Is just basically put rules in place so that should somebody want to come along and build a data center down by the old Titus station, these were the rules that they'd have to follow, and they would have to come to our board here under a conditional use and get it approved. So that's a high level what this is. If you would like to read the entire ordinance, it's currently sitting on the township website. You can go in there and see the whole thing. But what we're here to discuss then tonight is if amongst the board, if everyone is happy with it, if they want to make any changes to it, or if they want to approve it for advertising.
Greg, one thing in the documents that we had for the meeting was the Berks County Planning Commission's comments on the ordinance, I believe, with recommendations. Are those recommendations being actively implemented, or, what's the follow-up on that?
Yeah, Mark, I can speak to that. I did review the Berks County Planning Commission's review letter, and I did implement pretty much all the changes that they suggested into the ordinance. So the ordinance that is in final form that's in front of you and on the township website includes all of those revisions, as well as many, if not all of the revisions that the Township Planning Commission suggested during their several reviews of the ordinance. So that is all accumulated. And the reason that we are going to have to advertise and kind of do this next month instead of having done it last month is because I wanted to resend this complete ordinance back to the Berks County Planning Commission and back to the Township Planning Commission for a final review, because there were substantive changes. And when that happens, you're required to resend it to those commissions to make sure that they have final say.
Okay, thanks for that explanation.
Yeah, just to build on Kelsey's point, there's been a lot of back and forth on this between Delta, between the planning commissions, between our engineers, Kelsey, lots and lots of discussion. This was not done in a bubble in any means. And special thanks once again to Dave Robinson for being our subject matter expert on this. Without Dave's help, I don't know that we would have got here, because he has that special expertise that we didn't have. That's not a criticism of anybody, but these things are just so new and technologically complex that we needed Dave's help for all this. So frankly, Dave was of the opinion that this is probably the best ordinance that he's seen in Pennsylvania on data center ordinances. Candidly, there's only 8 of them out there right now. So, there's not a ton to compare that to, but I think he did a really nice job on it, I guess is kind of what I'm saying in a nutshell.
All right. Did you have a question? Do I hear a motion to approve advertisement of a public hearing for the data center overlay proposal?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I'm opposed.
Just sorry, one more thing I would add. I did get an email from Barbara Dietrich, who is the chairperson of the Planning Commission. I think it was yesterday. And she did have a good suggestion. It doesn't have anything to do with an amendment or any revisions to the ordinance as it stands. But she did indicate that when she was reviewing the escrow amount that the township requires for this kind of use, it's only $1,500 for a developer to submit. With the amount of regulations and engineering review that it's going to take pursuant to this new ordinance, I would recommend that the board consider amending its omnibus fee schedule to include a higher escrow amount, because your engineers are going to spend well over $1,500 reviewing a plan for this kind of use with respect to going through these zoning conditions.
What would you say is the right number?
I would probably defer to your engineers to get that number, and we can sort that out between now and next meeting. I can ask Steve and Joe what they think after they have a chance to think about it.
Question there. Are we able to amend the fee schedule for specific uses? Like on a use by use basis, or is this just across the board?
Yeah, you can amend your fee schedule to be as specific or as broad as you want it, really.
I just would hate to have somebody who's doing a very trivial thing have the same fee as somebody who's building a giant data center. Okay, Moving on to item 2.
Yeah, so the TND, also a ton of work going on in that one. Same sort of back and forth that I just described, minus Dave Robinson. He's not involved in this one, but I believe the plan is there, and Kelsey can tell me if anything's changed there. But for our meeting on the 31st in 2 weeks, that we'll have the same process for that one as we're doing for the data center tonight, where we review it for advertising for a hearing.
Yeah, my understanding, and so Steve from Great Valley, Steve Hoffman, he kind of took the lead on the TND ordinance, and I sort of took the lead on cleaning up the data center ordinance. So he should have a final draft in final form, just kind of like the data center ordinance you have tonight, but the TND ordinance for review and authorization to advertise after the 31st meeting so that you could potentially enact it in April.
If I could say something, the Berks County Planning Commission has not seen the TND at all. We have only sent the data center a few times, but 3 times but they have not seen the TND at all. So it might be a little soon to.
Yeah, the goal I think would be for Steve to try to put it in final form and get it to the Berks County Planning Commission between now and the 31st for an initial review and see what they come back with. So you're right, Patty, it may end up having to get pushed off a month depending on how much review the Berks County Planning Commission sends back. But ultimately the goal is to try to move it along to at least, April or May.
Yeah, because I guess on this one, timing wise, what we were talking about was having it reviewed for advertising on the 31st and then have it come in for the hearing, whatever our May meeting is. I don't remember off the top of my head, but the data center one, we'd look to have our hearing set for our April meeting. So they'd be a month apart.
That's what I'm saying. The Planning Commission has not seen a final draft of the TND. We only meet April 7th. So yeah, I mean, the data center has been, really vetted out, but this TND has not. So it would not be ready in April. And
yeah, I apologize. I misspoke. The advertisement for enactment would probably happen in April, and the enactment itself would happen in May if all goes well with the reviews. I apologize. That's my fault. I misspoke on the timeline.
Didn't we need to move it into the 31st because there wasn't enough days in between April and May? So then if we do April, it would have to be June. I thought we had to do it for the 31st because there wasn't enough days.
All I'm saying is that the Planning Commission has not seen this. They have seen the rudest elementary form of it. The data center has, really been vetted out, but the TND was not. And I thought that was the idea, was to do one and then go full forward with the other one, but they have not seen it. So
the goal would be for the final version to be sent to the Planning Commission right after the March 31st meeting, and then get a review back, and then we should have enough time to potentially be able to enact it in May, but we have to do all the required posting and the mailings and everything else. So
it's possible this goes to June. Hopefully we get it in May.
Correct. Yeah.
So the TND, does that include the high density housing and apartments?
It's not a high density.
Traditional neighborhood development?
Yeah, it's a mixed use. It's not high density. I'm not sure what else to say.
Yeah, I thought you were saying before that maybe an apartment house or two were gonna.
They could do apartments as part of the mixed use, correct, but it's not high density residential. This is 2 different designations. Okay, if any other questions there, if not, we'll go to the recreation grants. So there's 2 different recreation grants that are being talked about right now. One, to do a comprehensive recreation study across the entire township. And the second one is to look at both the Montrose Manor and the Penguin Playgrounds to get, we'll call it a vision from I'll use the word developer, I don't know if that's the right word or not, but to get their visions as to what they could do with the playground. Now, when I'm talking about visions there, I'm not talking about just replacing equipment. I'm talking about maybe they recommend building a pavilion, for example, or putting pickleball courts in. I mean, I'm just making stuff up, but you kind of get the point where they kind of craft a new vision for these two playgrounds. And I think both Peter and Patty have been working on these two, so I'll kind of turn it over to them.
First of all, I did clarify that it's really not for equipment and playgrounds, it's for planning, just exactly what you said. I have contacted some, 4 agencies that do comprehensive recreation, open space planning. And we're supposed to be receiving their cost estimates, shortly. I haven't received any yet, but hopefully they're coming in shortly.
Yeah, they kind of have to. So I think the deadline is April 30th for one of them.
It is, and that was pointed out to them. So I'll follow up if I don't get anything quickly.
And how about the vision for the playgrounds? Do we have
Haven't, well, when I talk to them about both. I have to get them more information. I think it's better if I can give them more information about the size, the value of the park, their playgrounds really. I hate to say parks, they're playgrounds. But that would come later. The first thing is comprehensive planning.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions on that one? All right, the last thing under this is the community funding project grant. So we have chosen at our last meeting, we chose the Kenhurst Interceptor project as our project to submit for this. The grant will get submitted to 3 different federal level reps that cover the area. So Representative Houlihan, we actually submitted the application to her already on the 9th. And they will pick their projects then, and we'll see whether or not she supports this as one of her projects to move forward. We're also submitting on Friday for Senators McCormick and Fetterman, the same project, and then they will pick if it is one of their projects. You may ask, why are we submitting 3 times for the same project? The way this kind of works once it gets into DC is that both the House and the Senate will pick these projects. If you have senators and House representatives supporting it, it increases your chances, 1, of getting your project fully funded, or I should say funded, but 2, for fully funded. So we're trying for $8 million as part of this. If you only have one side of the chambers, it could get potentially crammed down or potentially kind of knocked out. So we're trying to get as much support as possible, basically. So it's kind of now, it was hurry up and wait. So Delta supported the first one. They submitted the first one. They're going to submit the next 2 on Friday, and then we'll just kind of wait. But we won't wait that long. So Representative Houlihan, for example, will post to her website on April 17th which projects that she's going to select. So we will know pretty quickly, at least on that one. The senators usually are sometime during April and May, so we'll know there pretty quickly too. So now we just kind of wait and see what happens.
Thanks. So now I think time to move on to you, Chief Winchester, if you're ready for us.
I'm ready. Good evening. Everyone on the board should have my report on their tablets, and if there's any questions. I just wanted to point out with the self-directed activity in the KPI report, I did adjust the numbers, the warning levels and the limit levels slightly. And you'll see as well that the value of the actual number of self-directed activities dropped slightly this last month. One of the reasons, the main reason we believe that occurred is we did have some personnel movement in that we had a retirement, and the individual that retired contributed incredibly to that number due to their assignment being the second therapy canine officer. So That number did dip down a little bit, but one of the things, like I said, that I looked at is adjusting the warning and limit numbers to try and refine and make us even more accountable. So I lowered I'm sorry, I lowered the warning level and the limit level so we could have a more clear, comprehensive look at our self-directed activity, because that is probably one of the most important things that we look at. As you know, that's everything outside, essentially everything outside of what we are assigned to do through 911 calls or radio calls. So that number is very important to us when we look at that. Also, just wanted to point out that we continue to be trending higher. I don't want to say than usual, because it's always high, unfortunately, in our fraud investigations. And just remind the public, another PSA, that no branch of any federal government entity will ever call you on the phone and request or demand payment for anything. And I can say that so broadly because it's true. The IRS will never call you. The FBI will never call you. The DEA, no federal government will ever call you. No officer of the court or officer of any municipality will call you and tell you that you missed a court hearing and you owe a fine. You need to owe us money because you owe us money in order to stay out of jail, or you owe us money to keep a loved one out of jail. That will never occur. It should always be a red flag when anyone contacts you purporting to be an agent of any federal government branch or organization. We experience on, I'd say, a monthly average of over $100,000 in losses to fraud in this township alone. And it's incredible. So my PSA is the same, that if you believe that someone is contacting you and it's fraudulent, to call us immediately. I'm not saying that we'll be able to arrest who this person is or these people are, but we can hopefully prevent you from providing them with any kind of account information or your hard-earned money. So please keep that in mind. And I will tell you that Bitcoin really serves no legitimate purpose whatsoever, because that's one of the constant requests from these individuals is that you owe us money because you failed to pay taxes on a property you own that you didn't even realize you owned in Florida, and you have to pay us through Bitcoin. They realize it's untraceable, it's untrackable, and it's once you go to that Bitcoin kiosk and you input your data, it's lost. We can't get that money back from you. So these are all red flags. If this occurs, please let us know right away. If anyone that you know, any family, please pass it along to them. And again, if there's ever a question, you can call us 24/7 anytime. Even if you don't know the number, you can't find the number because you're rattled, just call 911 and tell them it's not an emergency, but you need the telephone number for Cumru Township Police Department. They'll get you that. You can talk with us and we'll help you, hopefully, before anything bad happens with fraud. Outside of that, I would just like to update the board and the individuals that are here relative to a major incident that occurred a few hours ago on 724 right by Valley Stream Road. We did have a fatal motor vehicle accident. That accident involved a trash truck and also a full-size pickup truck. Fortunately for us, there was an individual behind the trash truck that had dash cam video. So we were able to observe the crash as it occurred. And the indication from that video is that the trash truck was traveling eastbound in their lane. The pickup truck was traveling westbound and crossed over the center line, striking the trash truck head on. And it's unfortunate the pickup truck driver, who was the sole occupant, was pronounced deceased at the scene. So it's probably opened up now, but it was more than likely closed for a few hours. We did call in our resources in the department for our crash reconstruction, as well as our truck enforcement, because there's a lot of things that need to take place in order to make sure that all vehicles, specifically the trash truck, was in compliance with all the laws. The county crash reconstruction team was also called in to assist us in processing, photographing, and taking measurements. So that should be open by now, but I just wanted to advise the board and the public that's here. And I know what you're thinking. We don't know at this point if there and what the contributing factors were that caused that crash. That we may never know, but hopefully we will know once the decedent is medically examined.
But you said near Valley Stream Road?
Close, that was the closest cross street, yes, but it was not at that intersection. That's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. Some somber news. Moving on to Fire Department. Welcome back, Chief.
Good evening, Commissioners. My monthly report's on there for February. Another active month. If you have any questions, I'll gladly take them. If not, I'll keep this moving. I will be working on getting my KPI stuff caught up and get on board with that also. No questions. I'll move on to item B. I'm looking for a motion for pay application 21 and pay application 22 to Balton Incorporated for a total sum of $286,536.62.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Okay.
If not, thank you, and keep this moving.
Thanks, Chief. Administration Department. Peter, did you want to?
Bring that, we have a couple things we can use. Couple things we can use, but it's difficult to find indices that really reflect the performance. The ordinance, the ordinance codification, working with the solicitor, we have a proposal. I'm recommending that the board move forward with it. It's needed. It should have been done quite a while ago, and it wasn't. It's time to do it now. The price has been quoted. It's about $30,000, plus there are some continuing costs for upgrading ordinances as they come through. And this would be available electronically and in hard copy, both of which are important.
Yeah, and maybe I'll just give a little bit of, for the public's sake, what codification is. I think it's probably kind of somewhat of a mystery. So basically what we're talking about here is kind of taking all the ordinances that were created over time. To Peter's point, this has not been codified since the year 2000. So it's literally 26 years old at this point. The challenge with not doing that is that there are multiple. So one of the things that general code is going to look at is looking at potentially modernizing a lot of our ordinances. Some of them are very old. And since they haven't been looked at for a long time, they may no longer be in compliance with state laws and potentially even some of our other corresponding municipalities nearby us. So it'll kind of be a refresh, if you will, with some of that. They'll make suggestions as to what we can change, what we should change. In some cases, things might be stale and maybe they should be removed. In other cases, maybe there'll be a hole that's missing, so on and so forth. There's a lot of different things that could happen there. Finding things will be a lot easier on this. So one of the outputs will be a searchable code that we can put on the website so that anybody could go on there and just Control F whatever they want to know about and find it out there. Right now, that's just not available. And it's hard for everybody. I know Kelsey's commented publicly that she has trouble finding things in our code, which is really just we can't have that. We can't have that going forward. It makes it easier for developers to go in when they're looking at purchasing property and doing projects here. There's just a lot of benefits to having this done, but it is a lift. To Peter's point, it's costly because it hasn't been done for so long. And it takes about 18 months is what they're projecting to do this because it hasn't been done in so long. But once you do it, there is just a much smaller annual fee to kind of keep everything up to date. It's no that different than like cleaning out your garage. If you don't do it for a long time, it gets really dirty. If you do it periodically, it's not such a big lift when you actually go in there and do it. And that's kind of the premise here. So it's a big lift at first. It's going to take some time, but then going forward, it should be much easier and it'll be a much better experience for everybody involved in the community, including residents.
I agree.
Question I had was, I think, looking at the price and doing some research on the $30,000 number that you gave, and it seems reasonable given the amount of time that it's taken. But I just wondered if we had explored, I know there are other companies that do this, and so I don't know, Peter.
There are a few other companies that do that. There aren't a lot.
No, I
But
know.
General they do it broadly and they have a lot of experience. And if you're going to do it, we want to be sure that we're doing it right.
Right.
And they have a good track record. That's why we're recommending that you go with General.
I think I've read too that they're very experienced with Pennsylvania ordinance in particular.
Yes.
So
I think Kelsey used them in Muhlenberg.
I checked with quite a few municipalities, those that I've worked for before and others, and General is in most of them.
Yeah, and I had a conversation with the manager for Muhlenberg Township, of which I'm also a solicitor for, and he highly recommended them. And I love searching their code on their website. It's really easy to navigate. So I highly recommend going with this company and think it's well past due.
And can you speak at all to I think you mentioned there's some ongoing sort of cleanup or like what would be the ongoing costs to the township?
So it's about $1,300 a year, I believe, for General to basically take any ordinance that the township enacts throughout the year and add it to that system and that database and clean it up. And they'll even reference, like if let's just say the traffic ordinance amendment, for example, it will include reference to every single amendment to the traffic ordinance and the date that it was amended that's ever existed. So it's really easy to look back and see the history of the amendments of each ordinance. And they'll do that every year. You'll send them, a package of everything that's been amended and everything done. And then they'll just go in and clean it up for you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for answering the questions.
On that point, one thing I forgot to mention is they actually found 70 ordinances that aren't in our code currently. So these things I don't know where they were. They were just kind of floating in the ether, but they actually found it as part of their process to give us this proposal. So another important reason as to why you want to do this and stay on top of these things.
That said, do we want to consider approval? Do I hear a motion to approve the quote we received?
I'll make a motion to approve the quote.
I'll second it. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Moving on to the revised manager ordinance.
Excuse me. When I came, I looked at the manager ordinance that was adopted, I think, in 1963, and it needs amendment. You're going to have a new manager to some point, and that will be the first thing that person, if it's a professional manager, which is what you want, that will be the first thing that they will want to look at. And what I've provided is, I didn't suggest total changes because the ordinance has a number of very good features, but there were a number of features which had to be changed to modernize it, and that's what I have provided.
And just to piggyback on Peter's point, so Peter spent a lot of time on this, going through, making all the different suggestions and changes. As he's mentioned, it modernizes it. So what it really does in a nutshell is it just kind of outlines, here's what the manager's responsible for, here's what their authority levels are, here's what they do versus what the board does, and so on and so forth. So it's multiple pages, but it really clearly defines what the township manager role is. So it was a very important thing to get done. And, you know, I just thank Peter for going and taking the time and hammering that out for us.
Look good to me. So are we just needing to take a motion? Make a motion to enact it?
Yeah, it looked good to me too.
Yeah, I reviewed it with Peter. I think we all had a chance to talk through it with him. Kelsey, any feedback on your end?
Yeah, I reviewed it. I reviewed the initial draft that he sent me, and it's a good ordinance. I think it, meets everything contained in the code. And yeah, I'm good with you guys enacting it tonight.
Great. Do I hear a motion to approve the revised manager ordinance?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, great. Moving on to the 5-year capital improvement program.
Yes, one of the things that you do not have is a 5-year or multiple year capital program, and coming in here new and trying to determine what your capital program was very difficult. And I've been working on setting up a 5-year capital improvement program. And with the help of the superintendent of public works, who helped me with the spreadsheets. I'm not great at spreadsheets. I think I'll have it ready by your next meeting. It will show you exactly what I feel the 5-year plan should be. It will explain the process. I have pulled together what I think was originally proposed by the departments for a 5-year plan. There will still be some work because I need to talk with especially Public Works, Fire. I need to look at what the capability is in terms of funding. I'm not sure that we can afford what has been asked. And so it will have to be spread out over a period of years, but that's why you have a 5-year plan. So that if you can't afford it this year, and you get your priorities established. And the 5-year plan, the first year of the 5-year plan becomes the capital budget for the current budget. So I've set this up so that it is a capital plan for 2026, as if the board approved it, but it's just the first shot. There will be some amendments and changes.
Yeah, I think that's perfect, Peter. And particularly as it relates to roads, are we getting into the granularity of like grading the roads and saying, this one's an A, this one's a B, so on and so forth, so that we can kind of incorporate all that into there?
Well, there have been, that's been done in essence, but there is not a lot of money. You have 70 some miles of roads, and you don't spend a lot of money on roads. And I've been talking with Mike, and there are other things that can be done that will get more paving done than we're doing at the present time. So we'll be back to the board with that information also.
Yeah, perfect. Like you just stated, like we're just looking for the universe, fully acknowledge that you can't do it all at once. It's not going to happen. But we want to know how much, Andy would use the word tech debt. Like how much tech debt do we have here? Do we have millions and millions of dollars of roads that needs to happen like yesterday? Or is it more spread out? You know, kind of what's the universe look like, basically? That's a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer me now, but that's kind of what we're trying to figure out here.
Well, I'll give you an example is the road right out front, Welsh Road. That badly needs to be repaved. And the cost for that contracted cost estimate is about $1,400,000. That's one road.
Yeah, we were talking a bit with Joe about potentially, you know, trying to get some funding for Welsh Road. We'll see.
We did look into that grant. Unfortunately, it's really geared towards sidewalk. They call it a multimodal grant, but when I looked into the guidelines, it really is into bicycle, pedestrian, sidewalk, any type of mode where it promotes pedestrian movement. Unfortunately, Welsh probably wouldn't be a good candidate unless we had a designated bike lane, and that's not going to be feasible. But I am looking at other sources where we can find some grant funding. Still not ruling that grant out. We do have some time. I believe it's a July 31st deadline submission. So I met with Mike and his staff, and we're looking at some other possibilities of some roads that might fall under that grant or other improvements that we can look at.
Yeah, that's perfect. And Delta can help out with, you know, once we figure out what roads we really kind of need to prioritize, they could help us with trying to find some funding as well.
One of the things I wanted to just add when I sat with Mike and Ben to look at some of the road plan improvements that he pointed out to me, and I think it's good for our constituents to know, is that the money that you spend or don't spend could end up being much more later. So, you know, you're kind of, you know, if you have to spend $1 million now or $5 million 3 years from now to deal with a much bigger problem. I'm just using round numbers, but you know what I mean? It's kind of like preventative expenditures here. So we're looking to minimize a cost to our constituents by doing things that need to be done in a priority way to prevent from it being a much bigger expense down the road.
That's absolutely right.
You say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Thank you for that.
Anything else to discuss on the capital improvement? Did we want to talk about the refuse contract, the bidding and options for the Flying Hills community?
Well, I haven't really gotten into this a great deal, but the refuse contract that you have now does not include containers. And most collectors now require containers. It's also much cleaner in a community than having odd-shaped boxes and barrels. So the new contract will have to include that. Now, I understand there is one section in the township, and I have not gotten into this, I haven't looked at it, that will not work for containers. And so there has to be some accommodation there, whether it's having them be responsible for their own collection, or whether there's a certain section in the contract that provides for the collection of that at a different price. I mean, I don't know how this should go, but you're going to have to do something in the near future. I understand. I'm not sure when the contract runs out, but there are.
I think it's after this year, right? Yeah, this is the last year. Yeah.
Well, there are specifications around that we can get that are modern, but they almost all include containers. So you can look forward to that change. You can look forward to that change in the future.
Yeah, so just a little bit of background for Peter, but for everybody's sake, I think a lot of folks probably know about this, but the area that Peter's referring to is the Flying Hills area. So some of Flying Hills, you can use containers at the single family homes, and there's a couple other cottages and a couple other areas that you could use containers and be okay in Flying Hills. The townhomes, the condos, those areas will not work the way that it's set up right now. So what we had talked about in the past is potentially creating a new separate refuse district for the areas that can't be collected with containers. And then everybody else, which is in all honesty, probably about 99% of the township, everybody else could go to containers and would switch over. But that process of establishing that second refuse district is probably going to take a little bit of time. Hence the reason I'm bringing it up now, so that once it comes time to actually put those specs together and everything, we kind of know what the playing field looks like. I think Kelsey was going to get involved with that if memory serves. Weren't you going to get involved in that? No? All right, maybe not. Maybe I'm remembering that incorrectly, but.
Well, I think the goal was to have a conversation with Flying Hills and find out what they prefer, because we could make them the entirety of Flying Hills or just those districts responsible for their own trash collection. I mean, there's different ways to do it, but ultimately you got to make a decision, because this has to get done before the contract runs out, or you're gonna have some angry residents with a lot of trash.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That was a part I completely neglected in my story there. So I did have that conversation with Mr. Whitman that owns Flying Hills. And he's perfectly fine with kind of parceling it out the way we talked about, where the single families and the townhomes and the cottages that can get containers, he was fine with that kind of being on its own island, if you will. And then potentially looking at that second refuse district as kind of its own thing. Now, what he's looking for is kind of get an idea of what the pricing would look like. So he's like, so what does that pricing look like on that second district? I think he fully acknowledges that it's going to be higher than the first one. But his question is can he get a better rate doing it on his own, or can he get a better rate doing it through the township? To which I said, we're not going to know that until we bid it.
I did have a conversation this week with AJ Blazinski. That's our trash hauler right now. He had stopped in for some other things, and he said he does work with some other areas that do have, in the cases of HOAs and stuff, where they have their own refuse contracts. So I had asked him if he could send me some samples so that we could look at like kind of pricing and what's involved, just to be proactive to see what we're talking about, like what the difference is. I don't know what that is, but I did reach out to him this week.
That's a good start. I also think that if we're going to move on this, someone has to go out and figure out what these districts look like. Where exactly these districts are cut off, get a map and figure that out first, so we know how many homes we're talking about, and all that good stuff, because we're not going to be able to get effective bids if we can't tell these potential haulers exactly what we're looking at.
Yeah, and I did that. So, if somebody has a map of Flying Hills, I can show you exactly where that is. From a street perspective, it's a lot of streets, but in terms of the number of homes, it's not actually that many. It's probably I forget the exact number, but roughly 180 homes that could be picked up via containers. But there's probably 600 to 700 homes that would not be able to.
Well, you're absolutely right. We do have to provide basic information. I assume we have lists now of all the addresses. We would use that information. And setting up a district, I think the idea of speaking with the person who's in charge is really a smart thing to do. If we would include that as a special district, it would have to be an option, because if he wanted to do it himself, we would have to be able to take that out of the contract.
Yeah, this is probably something we should add to the action item list for Tanya. So it'll basically be, I guess, for Peter to continue to follow up on this, I guess, is that where we're at for, it sounds like Patty's already kind of done some of the legwork on this. Yeah, but the two of them can work together, and I can help you with the Flying Hills roads that you could potentially do it on.
Would the action be an update at the next meeting?
Yeah, just we'll kind of keep updating
Yep.
it until we know exactly what we're gonna do, but I think Peter's spot on. We're probably gonna have to do it as like an optional type thing, just in case Mr. Whitman wants to take it in-house.
We should probably also pinpoint a time by which we definitely need to put out the bid specs and advertise so that we can get the contract in place prior to the current one ending.
So what was kicked around was June previously. Yeah, we don't have a lot of time.
All right, I guess moving on, what do we have to discuss around the sewer billing? Any updates there?
Boy.
Zoom with a provider. I think they do what, why I'm missing?
Edmonds GovTech. Yeah,
Yeah.
there are many municipalities.
And it was an extremely helpful meeting. We hope to have one more provider present the same kind of information so that we have something to compare with. But I personally was very impressed by what they do and how they do it. They've been in business for a long time. And we're seriously looking at making a change in what we do now because we have a lot of problems. It's an old system. We're having problems with the post office, with the cards. And I don't know what your experience is, but I don't get cards anymore with invoices. Used to, but no more. So I'm looking forward to modernizing what we do, making a better system than we have now.
And we do have some follow-up from our meeting this morning. I have 3 dates that the company has provided for them to come in and do a demo for us to show us all the capabilities. I mean, it goes beyond just what we're talking about now, which is like online payment, but they have a whole suite of modules and things that could replace the system that we have right now. And then after that demonstration, it's like a 3-hour demonstration they were talking about, is they would provide us with a quote very quickly after that. And then, if we're, it seems like we have some urgency to this to make the change. So I think as long as the price is right, we'll move forward and make a recommendation to the board.
We are looking forward to getting a presentation from our present vendor, but we haven't finalized that yet.
So I think there's a second part to this discussion though. So that's great with the future. We have a current situation to deal with though too. So the current situation for folks that may not be aware, Peter was referring to this, our cards, for whatever reason, they got caught in the sorters at the post office. Some of them split. Some of them probably got totally chewed up. I mean, there's a variety of things that happened, none of which were good. Some of them got sent back to the township. Some of them didn't. Some of them got delivered. In Mark's case, Mark just received his sewer bill on Thursday and the late charge date was Tuesday. So, and he's not the only one. There is apparently hundreds of people that kind of fell into this category. And as you would imagine, none of them are very happy about this situation. Recognizing that, folks are supposed to know that their sewer bills are coming, but the reality is a lot of people need that bill to prompt them. So the question for the board is, what do we want to do with this? Because I think we have a lot of folks that fell into the situation like Mark did, or they got half a bill, not the whole bill, and they weren't kind of able to pay their bill. Some of them, frankly, probably just even never got the bill, period. Go ahead,
Yes.
Peter.
I personally, this is just my personal opinion. I think if there are circumstances that we can recognize that we should not be charging a late fee. I don't think that's fair. But we have to recognize it, and maybe in every case, we look at the history of that payer. If it's been late for the last 4 quarters, then chances are it wasn't late because the post office messed it up. But I don't think it's fair to charge somebody a late fee based on the idea that they should remember that they have a quarterly bill to pay. I don't think some people will do that, but a lot of people, myself included, wait for the bill, wait for the hard copy, and then I pay that. So that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, so Andy, Leisha, and I ran into this with the trash bill in 2024, about 2 years ago. What we did at that point in time, instead of digging into each individual account, because that's difficult, that's a lot of time. What we basically just did was we agreed to waive all the late fees for that particular billing. And if somebody actually paid a late fee, we refunded those late fees as well. But we did give kind of a new due date, basically, that said, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to refund anybody that's paid a late fee. We're going to waive all late fees if you pay by X date. So what we would have to do if we wanted to go that route again is we would just have to figure out what X date would be. Now, that was a trash bill. That was an annual bill. This one's a little bit different in that it's a quarterly sewer bill. So I guess to back into that date, we would have known when. So I guess the late charge date would have been what, the 11th? Is that the date what they would have had to pay by? I see Patty shaking her head. Okay. So what do we want to do? Give them another 30 days to pay by, or
do we know that everybody who
The 10th, it was March 10th.
I guess the dilemma I have in my mind is for those who didn't receive their bill, do we know who those people are? Like what do
we know who didn't pay?
Well, that's what I'm getting at is like, if people didn't get the bill and don't know to pay, what does giving them another 30 days do?
Well, what we did was send out a letter.
We did. Okay, yeah. We did. So we know
we sent out a letter that basically said, hey, we know you didn't pay. You have until X date. And if you didn't get your bill, your late fee is going to be waived. You're not going to go to collections, that kind of thing. But we sent another letter out to the people that didn't pay us. Once again, it was holistic. So we don't know who actually did or didn't get the bill. So maybe some people, to Peter's point, got a benefit, but
because it's the sewer bill, they do not go to collections right away. It's a minimal charge. I think it's like 2% or something. So it's like $3 or it's a minimal charge, but they do not go to collections right away. When you go to collections, that's when the 25% and that goes right to collections. So it's a little different than the refuse, like you said, because that's a yearly thing. And that was, this is quarterly. So then it kind of runs into, depending on how much time you're giving them, then you're running into the next bill and to the next bill. So I know, having been here in 2024, that it was really a nightmare to send out the letters. Some of the people got angry because they got the letters. We spent all the time to refund. When we refund, I don't know how their systems are, but when we refund, you have to actually set up a vendor for each check. So then that was in the office. So say I never sent Peter a check before, he is now a new vendor. So every single person we were sending a check to became a vendor. So we had to have a vendor file and we had to make an account. And it was, and then some of the people didn't cash the checks. And so then we had to go back and, are you going to cash the checks? Do we have to reissue the checks? I mean, it really just kind of folded in on itself. I just want to give you that perspective, whatever you decide to do, but.
Sure. I think, I'll say, I think we on the board, and I can certainly say for myself, recognize there's a burden inherited by the township if and when we decide to do something like this. And we recognize the burden falls squarely on a small team of administrative staff that already have tons of work on their plate. So I think
That's a problem.
yeah, this is a problem we are working to address and we need to continue working on. But recognizing that burden doesn't remove our responsibility to take the burden, whether we do or not. If we decide that there's an ethical decision, as I think you're suggesting, Peter, that if somebody didn't get notified, and I'm in the same boat as you, I need to get the bill. I'm a little ADHD, so like I might need to get prodded. It's kind of a fairness issue.
That's why I suggested if we can be clear, be sure that they in fact only got part of their bill or didn't get anything. I mean,
So the challenge there is I feel like I don't know that there's a way to get to the bottom of that. That's not going to result in even more of a burden than what Patty's describing. So it's
I don't think there's any way to find out if they received it or didn't receive it. I would like to suggest that we have to hope that people are honest and didn't get it. I know I need to get it, and there's times where I use more water, so I have a higher sewer bill. So I wouldn't know just to pay it without getting a bill because I wouldn't know what amount to pay. So I know I could probably call and get that information, but again, I would need that bill to be prompted. I would like to suggest that the people that didn't pay, there's probably an easy Excel spreadsheet to figure that out if they paid or not. Send the letter out and give them 30 days to pay that bill because soon the next quarter is going to be coming out and we're probably having another issue for using those same cards again.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Tanya. And unfortunately, until we kind of go through what Mark and Peter were just talking about with the new vendors, that kind of thing doesn't happen tomorrow. So we are going to have to just kind of slog through it a little bit for a couple quarters until we get there.
And I think there should be no late fees. I know you said it was just nominal, but it should be no late fees.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. Well, the other problem, again, I'm just throwing out there food for thought, is this is our system that's in place. So if there is a problem with the post office mailing them, what are we going to do next quarter? Like, you know, and the next quarter and the next, until we get a new system in place. I don't know, like, I don't have a solution. I'm just saying this isn't a quick fix that we can like put a Band-Aid on right now, because this is going to be a potential ongoing problem until we get something new in place.
A question here on that you just brought to mind for me is what effect does the flow of the sewer bills have on like the liquidity of our particular funds? Like, are we going to have like a liquidity crunch if like we had a diminishment of people paying the bill like by 20% or something? Just hypothetically, if 20% stopped paying the sewer bill.
The sewer is one of our better funds, so it's not something that we had a deficit in because we were planning on doing projects and things. So
the reason I ask, I'm glad to hear that, is because I would then suggest if we're not in a liquidity crisis here, why don't we waive fees for time being until we figure out what to do?
You know, can I suggest that we look at this and get back with some kind of a recommendation that mitigates some of the problems that you apparently had before, that still does something?
I'm also not sure, I don't know if Kristen can talk to this better, but I know that there's something in like the billing system that like they start adding the late charge or something, like when they go in and they pull up someone's account after a certain date, it like automatically starts adding on like the late fees. She could probably tell better, and I know in the past then there was problems going into that vendor to try to get those taken off and put them back on and.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I want to just turn it back to what Peter was saying. I think rather than litigate the details right this very second and diving into the weeds, like you said, let's get some thought put into this, and then we can make a decision. Does that sound good to everyone else?
Yeah, I think so. But that said, we do have this live cycle that's happening right now that we have to make a decision on. So there's a lot of layers to this thing.
Right.
There's this one right
yeah.
now. Then there's the next one, which I think Peter and Patty can investigate. But we do have to figure out what we're doing right now with this one.
Well, you have another meeting in 2 weeks, right?
Do we want to kick it to the next?
We do, but you're going to start running, the longer we delay it, you're going to start running into other billing cycles now for the what that would be, April, I guess, that would come out.
Or you're gonna be people that are gonna be getting the part in the mail and they're saying like, oh, I have a late fee now.
That was I brought my checkbook here tonight, so I wanted to know if I'm responsible for the late fee. And I understand I'm not, so I just wrote the check.
Yeah.
They have a late fee.
Can Kristen tell us if that is something in the dynamic system, from what I understand? Could you say that?
So as of a certain date, and we don't have a date that we have to enact it, but we go in and we say anybody who did not pay as of today has the late fee. Now, what we usually do is give it a few days, because anything that we get in the mail that's postmarked as of the due date, we accept as being current. So as of that Friday, we added it on to all the accounts because they had not paid. I will also say, just as food for thought though too, there have been a few people who have come in saying that they didn't get their bill, and we've charged them the late fee because that is what our instructions are to do. So short of, I don't know who those people were. We'd almost have to probably refund anybody who's paid with the late fee since that date, because I couldn't tell you who that would have been.
That's what we did last time.
Instead of listening to Patty talking about setting up those new vendors and all that stuff, would it be possible for you guys to just credit their account if they would be acceptable for that? Because you said it's just a few dollars instead of setting up a whole system.
I would have to do a little research. I've never personally credited the accounts, just because it hasn't been anything I've encountered yet. The sewer is a little different than the refuse, because the refuse is you have to pay the exact dollar amount, you know, that it's very strict. Whereas the sewer does have balances. So that is a possibility. I'd have to find out what would be involved with doing that. I would not say it's not possible though.
It's not impossible.
It's not impossible.
I mean, that sounds like a pretty good
do we want to
solution if that's possible.
Want to kind of conditionally go that route?
Yeah. Does that work? Can we conditionally say let's credit the accounts if you determine that's possible? Otherwise, we can come back to this.
So in the meantime, go ahead. In the meantime, should people come to the window tomorrow, charge the late fee? Don't charge the late fee.
Do not charge a late fee.
Okay, because if you wanted to, that's what I'm saying, because they will need direction, and then we'd have to turn around and figure out how many people were already charged, and then like to get the refund or the check or whatever it is you guys decide.
So just to kind of clear it up, because we've kind of talked a lot of places here. So here's what I propose. So we give everybody another 30 days from today. So that would be, I don't know, what's today's date? I've lost track. 17th of April. Everybody has to pay before the 17th of April. No late fees on those payments if they're within that 30-day window. If somebody's already paid a late fee and we can move money to credit their account, we'll do that. If we can't, then we'll kind of figure out what we need to do with those at our next meeting in 2 weeks. And then we'll issue a letter out to anyone that hasn't already paid, basically saying that you have until April 17th to pay. You won't be charged a late fee. If you pay before then, if you pay after April 17th, you will get a late fee.
And we need to get this information on the website too.
Sure, absolutely.
I had put a thing, as soon as we got the pieces parts, I had put on there that they're due by March 10th, and if you got a piece or you didn't get anything to call in. In the meantime, we had also taken like the page off of the refuse calendar and put that on as a gentle reminder that this is a quarterly bill. If you don't get one, please call in and pay it. So yes, whatever wording we came up with here, I'll get on the website like pronto, and hopefully people see it.
Perfect, thank you.
What grade?
That's what I was just gonna say.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So,
You need to restate what you just said.
Conditionally credit account.
yeah, so I guess I'll try and do a quick
30-day
recap.
fee waiver.
I make a motion off of what Greg just said regarding the sewer bill.
Okay, what I got was no late fees until April 17th. And if they already paid, we're going to try to credit if possible or come up with another solution by the next meeting.
And people that didn't pay,
No, yeah, no late fees until April.
Yeah, and
17th.
anyone that didn't pay will send a letter out saying exactly what you just said. Yeah, I'll send one of the cards, yeah. All right,
yes, that's my motion.
I'll second it. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, moving along. We have payment of bills. Do I hear a motion to authorize payment of bills for February 20th of this year, February 27th, March 6th, and March 13th?
I'll make motion.
I'll second it. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, now, sorry, Glenn, I told you I'd come back to you and I meant to get back to you sooner and then we just got right into the rhythm of things.
yeah, this is planning.
Well, the vacancies, no? Oh, that's civil service. And I
No,
circled the wrong
Can
one.
are we continuing with the planning? Okay, at your last meeting, we had discussed, I sent notice to the two inactive members of the planning commission. And, I have not heard any reply, so, that's what part of the problem was. I never heard any replies. So, I would respectfully ask that you take a vote to remove the two inactive members from the planning commission. And what that will do is part B, then that will create two vacancies for alternate members on the planning commission. The good news, at least right now, I have 7 members sitting on the planning commission and 1 alternate. So we're in a much better spot than we were before. But if these people aren't going to show up or respond, I would like to try to get some people in their seats. So that's, I'm requesting that we make a motion to do that.
Do I
I make a
hear-
motion to remove the two inactive planning commission, alternate planning members.
I'll second it. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
Okay, real quick, we have 2 to reaffirm, I think it's 2 to reaffirm approvals. It is the Penske Customer Experience Center. I honestly do not know what they are doing. I just keep putting it on here every 3 months to reapprove in case they want to be current. The next one is 719 Old Lancaster Pike. I know that they are working on possibly getting water service to that location. So that might be some of their delay. So that's basically the old, just reaffirm your approval, and you could do those together if you wanted to, based on the conditions that are on here.
Do I hear a motion to reaffirm approvals for Penske Customer Experience Center?
I motion.
I'll second.
And the 719 Old Lancaster Pike. So we got a motion. It's all right. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, and then we have,
And then we do have a representative here for the Newcastle Lawn and Landscape Phase 2. This had come to the Planning Commission as a sketch plan. They worked out a lot of the things. phase one was a waiver of land development because it was really just like a driveway to access the property. Phase two is just a large stone laydown area, another access drive, and expansion of the stormwater that's there. And the real land development will come when and if they do the future phase three. That's when they're going to put in like some buildings and parking and whatnot. But right now, and when they do that, this water and sewer would be provided. But at this point, it's pretty some basic stuff. So they're asking for the regular waivers. But like I said, we do have a representative if he cares to speak. And then they were asking for preliminary final plan approval based on resolving issues in the GVC review letter dated 2/23/25. They need to show the second access drive curb cut in the final drawings, obtaining the MPDES permits, and the normal fees and signatures. So did you want to talk, Mr. Funk? Am I doing okay? Can I be hired? Okay. Yeah. So like I said, it's not the biggest development in the world. It's a phased development, and the Planning Commission recommended that you approve both the waivers and a preliminary final.
I just wanted to quick ask. I see the Planning Commission's recommendations. The County Planning Commission. I didn't. I just was there any notable feedback?
There wasn't anything. No, I would have put down if there was something.
Okay.
It's compliant with all of the regulations. Great. They didn't have anything bad to say.
Okay. Any other questions? Do I hear a motion to approve the saldo waivers?
I'll make a motion to approve the saldo waivers.
I will second it. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All opposed?
Still have one
Oh.
motion left.
Wait.
Final approval.
And then, unless any other questions, do I hear a motion to grant conditional preliminary final plan approval for the 2026-01 Newcastle Lawn and Landscape Phase 2 plan?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sorry, my brain glitched there. All opposed? Thank you. Moving on to Public Works. What you got for us, Mike?
Good evening. Public Works operations were steady through February with all systems performing within normal parameters. Excuse me. The thresholds reflect historical performance and identify normal warning and limits for operating conditions. If you guys want any more detail, I can dive in or I can just move on.
Well, I had a couple questions, Mike, and this is the first shot going through this, just so everybody's aware. So, like, there might be a little bit more questions than normal, but I saw on the catch basin cleaning output, for example, it's at the warning level of 3 in February, and it's been at or below that level since October. So I guess the question I'd have for you is it a metric issue where maybe we need to change those limits around a little bit, or is it an issue that needs to be addressed in terms of the operations of the department, if that makes sense?
It's just a limit issue. We can move the numbers around. We rely on two things, weather and the season. Either we're going to be doing something sometimes or we're not, and that kind of is reflected in the KPI.
So I guess what I'm getting at is, like, if you're not, it doesn't sound like you're worried about it, like that particular one. So if you're not, maybe like adjust your metric a little bit so that like it's not triggering like it to go yellow or red or something like that. And I imagine that probably is going to apply to the other ones: street repair count, PA call workload, snow events. You had a couple of them that were kind of falling into that area. If they're not actually things that you're worried about, then maybe you move your metrics around a little bit so that it's not triggering. Now, if those ones that I just listed off there, if there are things that we need to discuss, let's discuss them. I don't want to just say move the numbers around. But that's kind of what this report does. It says where I'm worried at, and the I'm in this question is you. So if you're not worried, then we don't need to be worried either.
Yeah, it's just a numbers game. I can move stuff around. It was our first go at it.
Yeah.
I think it is a good attempt, but it was our first attempt.
No, that's perfect and fully recognize that. So that's fine. So yeah, just kind of tweak them to whatever you need to tweak them to so that it truly captures where you start getting worried about this stuff at.
Yeah, I wanted
Will
to
do.
just loop back on and sort of echo that statement. Peter also mentioned earlier in the meeting that he was running into some challenges representing the performance of the administrative staff in inadequate metrics. And so this is a new process. It's not going to be the same for police as it is for public works, as it is for admin, as it is for fire. All of our departments have very different measures of success when it comes to performance, and how we track that is very different. So it's a process.
Alrighty, next item. The Pennsylvania House Transportation Committee is accepting a request for bridges that may need major repairs or replacement. Getting on the list does not provide funding, but is the first step needed before the project can move forward. To qualify, the bridge must be locally owned or state-owned, at least 20 feet long, and the project must cost at least $300,000. The request must be submitted by March 31st. So I reached out to STV and they prepared a task order estimate for a not to exceed amount of $2,987.15. This would include reviewing the latest bridge inspection report for the Poplar Neck Bridge, recommending maintenance items, and developing a cost estimate. STV will complete the request form and Cumru Township will have to submit it. I guess I'm looking for a motion to move forward with this process.
Yeah, and just to build on Mike's comments, so one, we need to do it by the 31st. So it's time committed. It's going to take them close to 2 weeks. So if we would authorize this, then we would then in our meeting in the 31st have to, I guess, fully bless off on it and put everything through the process that Mike is referring to, which is basically filling it out a spreadsheet and sending it over to Carlos. But it sounds, not maybe a little more trivial when I say it that way, but that's basically what we need to do to get in here. The Poplar Neck Bridge, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, I think that's our biggest bridge that the township has, correct?
Yeah, that's the largest bridge the township owns. It's 550 feet long. The last substantial construction was in 2018, and that was all deck related.
Yeah, and it's pretty old too, if memory serves.
The original structure's from 1917.
Yeah, so it's a little past due maybe. So that's why when Representative Guzman's chief of staff reached out, we thought of this one as the one to look at. But in order to get on this list, they need to go through and do I'll call it the latest inspection at a simple level. And in order to do that, it's $3,000. So we would have to weigh in on if we're okay with spending that money so that we can get on the list to potentially get some state funding to get that bridge repaired.
Question there, do we get that inspection?
We have the invoice for it. That's what Mike got. So it's just a question of whether or not we want to pay the $3,000 to have them do this.
But I guess what I meant to ask is it's not as though we spend $3,000 and then we just cross our fingers to get something. We get the inspection.
We already have the inspection. They're just reviewing our inspection.
Oh, okay. Paying them to review it
and
then
come up with some recommendations for the repairs.
Okay, and we will still get their recommendations regardless of whether or not the state pays for them.
Yeah, we'll get it regardless if we get funding or not.
Okay, that's what I wanted to check. Is just make sure we're not just potentially burning the money for nothing. We're getting something back, which is these expert recommendations.
Correct.
Yep. Yeah, we'll understand what we're facing.
Yeah,
down there in terms of what needs to be done and so on and so forth.
I would move to get the recommendations done.
I'll second that.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Just real quick, for those who aren't aware, Poplar Neck Bridge, many residents probably haven't gone on it. This is a large bridge that you can see if you're driving over the Schuylkill River when you're passing nearby the Titus station. It's actually a pretty cool bridge, and the former manager would like to remind us that I think it's like some record holder in the county of like the largest freestanding masonry bridge. I mean,
Wasn't
there
it
was some
in a movie or something?
It was in a movie.
It's our
Or
famous
one
bridge.
celebrity.
All right, sorry about that. Back to you, Mike.
All right, next item. Last week, a sinkhole formed in front of 9 Beverly Avenue. That's in the Montrose Manor section of the township. The loose soil was removed and the underground void was filled. We will continue to monitor the area for the next several weeks before we actually finalize the backfill and the patching of the area.
Was there was another, was this last year? Is it the same area?
Last year, that was caused by a water main break that washed all the subsoil away from the road and the road just collapsed. This seems to be natural.
Just jogged my memory.
And we had one down the block a couple years ago, which was rather large and very expensive. This does not seem to be like that at all. We had a pre-construction meeting last week for the Ardmore sewer replacement project. Work is scheduled to begin on April 16th. They have 120 days for substantial completion and 150 days for total completion. You guys will start to see invoices being generated for that probably end of April. That's all I have, unless you guys have anything else.
What was our cost for that? Like,
that was a little over $1 million, I believe, for that project. It came under the engineer's estimate.
All right, back to you, Joe. Round 2.
Actually, I don't have any more. I think we covered all the
We
topics
got everything
earlier, so
Right.
I'm good.
Thank you.
Well then, keep an eye on Kelsey.
Thank you. The Sense Department's update. I really don't honestly have anything new to report. I haven't heard anything back from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which again isn't super surprising. I also haven't heard any real new complaints. I don't know if you've heard anything, Chief, but I haven't heard anything from any of the residents or codes or anybody else. I know it's still a problem, but there hasn't been sort of a flare up in the amount of complaints. I would say that, you know, with respect to getting the Department of Housing and Urban Development's attention, it might go a long way if there's more volume, as far as maybe some commissioners or residents also making complaints and reaching out, because I think they do sometimes look at the volume of complaints about a particular property rather than just, you know, 1 or 2 they might kind of put on the back burner. So that would be my only recommendation at this point.
That has been on my to-do list. But the thought just occurred to me. Would it make sense for the board to collectively contact HUD?
Yeah, I can send the board an email that I previously sent to, I think it was Willie Frymoyer and Patty, regarding the various ways that you can complain to HUD. There's call-in lines, there's website, online complaint forms, things like that. So if I email that to everybody and everybody decides to make their own complaint, it might get their attention. So I can do that if the board would want me to.
I just had one question. I hate to even ask the question, but they are under contract. They did sign the contract. They're building custom elevators. So that process is in motion.
That process is in motion.
We've had a couple cases where I still question whether or not it's operator error, people blocking doors, such things, which will cause these older elevators to stop on the floor. we get called, we go down, our maintenance comes out, resets it. My bigger thing is if that contract's been signed, they're building custom elevators for this building that was built, I think in the 70s, if I remember correctly. So like there's action happening. So I don't know how much more, like, I don't know how much quicker you can produce custom things. It's like building a fire truck. It could take, it takes some time. And I know it can be expedited, but how quick it can be expedited, I don't know. But we're addressing them. We get called, maintenance gets called. I think some of those issues have like been addressed, but I think some of it too is the people who live at Sensit. And I'm telling you, when they're impatient. We have a fire alarm. Oh my God, when we get the elevators back in, when we clear the fire alarm. So I just wanted to clarify that we talk about all these other things, but there has been a contract signed. I think Otis Elevators building the elevators, which are custom, and it's going to be a process like one elevator at a time. I think it's the one that's down currently is first, I think, up in the queue, but I haven't seen that schedule updated. So obviously I just got back, so I don't know where we stand in the process, but we've been going down if we get a call. Hey, elevator's down, make contact with maintenance. And I can tell you that I could run a call thing of what we've been down for if we need that. But again, I just wanted to clarify that the contract was signed. There is motion. We're farther than we ever were before.
That's correct. It's just going to take time.
Yeah, it's going to take some time.
I think beyond the elevator issue though, there were some concerns about the general state of the building and some habitability issues. And I think that's where the Department of Housing and Urban Development would come into play. The elevator issue we're working on. We can't push them any faster. They're not reaching any.
Yeah, and you were getting outside of my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Some of this other stuff because you're encroaching, in my opinion, on people's rights and different things. And I've learned that through different conversations. So that's an area that's outside of my wheelhouse. You know, the building's built like it's concrete mortar. Like it is literally, it's one of the most solid buildings around. So it's what and who is living there, but that's well out of my wheelhouse. That's probably what you're talking about with HUD, like those areas. But that's something a power much above me has to say this because I don't want to go to that area with people. We'll go there. We take care of what we have to.
Yeah.
But yes, I get what your point on what you're saying.
That's all I have unless anyone else has any questions or issues to bring to my attention. Okay, thank you.
Do you want to jump Glenn up here before correspondence?
Thank you for your patience, Glenn. We're gonna bump you up now, finally, as promised. We have a vacancy on our Civil Service Commission, for which Glenn has graciously volunteered his time, and Kelsey has confirmed there is no conflict. Do I hear a motion to appoint Glenn as the alternate for the Civil Service Commission?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thank you, Glenn.
When they break, if I could get your email and address and all that good stuff, then we can. Thank you. Do you want the correspondence? It's pretty straightforward. It's just to let you know there will be a prescribed burn at the Green Hills Preserve on Gunhard Road. They already had it. And that's to keep things under control to prevent a bigger problem. Cherry Becker, it's just a standard audit planning letter. They did come out and do the audit, and then we are expected to get the audit. I had talked to Nick Bieber, and he said that they would probably be prepared to present it at like your May meeting, all the findings. He usually puts it up there and talks through it at you. And see, again, this is just information only, and it's the Berks County Redevelopment Authority. Their program year, they had an annual report that came out, so I put it on your tablets and, just to show what they're up to. We could go right into zoning, move it along. The last zoning hearing board was different in that everybody was a continuance. And the other funny thing was the lawyer that was here tonight, Mark Cuck, was representing everyone. He was representing two when it started, and one he got hired on the spot. So it was almost like a TV show. So the first one, it's a continuance, and they changed lawyers, so it's going to be continued into April. They waived the 60-day requirement, so that's why that's continued longer. The 838, they are also continuing theirs. That's the one that was hired by Attorney Cuck, so he's working on that one. And that was on record that he was also waiving the 60 days, so there's no problem there. The application 839, that was the one about the kennel that the board had said about sending the letter to the zoning hearing board, and they took it under advisement. So they are also continued because they are getting an actual land survey of where everything falls on the property, because that's the problem between where the property line is. So that everybody was continuing. And 840, they were here earlier. That was also a continuance from February, but they are going to be heard next week. So everybody continued. We're working it out. Then the commissioners, I'll turn it over to Greg, because this is what you had asked for from the spreadsheet.
Yeah, so these are just some of the action items. Excuse me, I see some of them have some updates on here. The 724 crosswalks, if you remember back in, I think it was our January meeting, we talked about this. Chief Winchester and Joe were going to look into what we've done that. And it seems like Joe could jump in, I guess, but it looks like the crosswalk signs were placed and we're going to do line painting once the weather gets better. Is that in a nutshell?
That's my understanding. The line painting will be done when the weather's permits. And the signs have been ordered.
We installed the
Installed,
crosswalk signs back in February. The crosswalks will be painted. That's weather permitting. The temperature has to be 50 degrees, both air and the surface temperature. So
These are sorry, I'm just making sure. This is the crosswalk near the school, not the one.
No, actually, this is by the Mifflin Center, the healthcare center. They had raised some concerns that their employees were having difficulties crossing. It's technically, PennDOT does not view it as a mid-block because there's an intersection, even though it's a private driveway. It is a permitted crosswalk. Years ago, one of the officers in traffic did some research. However, their concern was the signage that's there. The little paddle is ignored by a lot of motorists, and the township has installed new signs that are more compliant with current regulations. And once the thermoplastic that's weather sensitive gets installed, that's going to be better visibility for motorists to see the crosswalk.
We had another one on 724 though, like all the way on the other side, right?
Yeah, up closer to the schools. I guess
I mean, wasn't there one a mid-block?
There was actually one where it was the old
all the way down towards Birdsboro, right?
Yes, and we were waiting to hear back from the Schuylkill River Trailways because the permit was actually in their name, from what we understand. Any enhancements that need to be done, that's considered a mid-block. It does fall under the jurisdiction of PennDOT, even though it's a PennDOT road. PennDOT still has jurisdiction with mid-block crosswalks. It's a new regulation that they're imposed. We were waiting to hear back from the Schuylkill River Trailways to see if they were agreeable to doing any either increase in signage or put in what they call maybe a rapid flashing beacon and so forth. But that still needs to be permitted by the state.
Yeah, the ones I was talking about were a little bit up further by the elementary schools. Do we need to do anything with those crosswalks up there?
we can look at those and evaluate them. And if we're doing the one set, we can just do the other.
In terms of painting, you mean?
Correct. Yeah.
In terms of signage, do we need to do anything with signage at those closer to the school?
I believe there are some existing signs near the school. I mean, we could take a look at it. I did look back a couple years ago. I did look at that corridor, and I may have made some recommendations. It looked like some of the signage has been installed. at the crosswalks, and I believe for the most part, it's in compliant. I know we were looking at the flashing warning devices back then, but we can double check to make sure if there's any other additional signage that might be required.
Tanya, in terms of tracking, do we want to keep it open just till it's done, or do we want to close it now, or what do you think?
I think once it's done, I can close it. And what I'll do on the spreadsheet, I'll just hide those rows so we don't have this ginormous spreadsheet to look at, but it'll always still be there. I can unhide all the rows.
Yeah, or can you put in dates for, instead of having the due date as the next meeting, can you just push it out and maybe like sort it by the date or something like that too?
It can be sorted any way you want. I thought we discussed having the date for an update at the next meeting. That's what that date is.
As a normal course, but I guess kind of like if this one, we know that it's going to push out a little bit, so we just push the due date out a little bit.
I can put whatever date anybody wants.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, when would you think that you could paint, Mike? Like, I know it's kind of hard to predict the weather, but is it like a May or a June type thing?
I would recommend doing it in June after school's out because traffic is less and then we can get in there and knock it out.
So maybe in June we can get an update then. The next one for Hillgate Water, I think, Chief, if I remember correctly, you've got this one figured out already.
There were some adjustments made. There's parts ordered for the pump. It will be going down for 2 or 3 days, which we'll be notified of, and we'll be running tankers over there. But they had to order some parts in order to do the work. They got to pull the pump. It's just a design factor that was something done well before any of us are sitting at this table. And a huge elevation change. So Shillington Water's working on it. It's back in service. It's running. Evidently ran the other day. We had the fire on Gerald. And from what I've been told, the residential side of things, that pressure has been improved also. So all in all, sometimes some of this stuff comes out and it's worst case scenario. But this isn't the only area that's fed by pumps. You'd be very surprised if you really dive into water systems, how many areas are fed by pumps. It's not all gravity. So yes, for the most part, I'm just waiting to hear from Shillington when they're going to pull that pump. And the anticipation is pull it one day, work on it, have it back in within the beginning of the 3rd day. And then they'll run a pump test, which hopefully the weather will be more conducive to running water down the street instead of 10-degree weather. So, but yes, there has been work on it. And from what I've been told, things have improved in that area. But we'll keep you apprised of the situation.
Okay. Same kind of question, Tony. You want to close this out, or should we just push the date a little to get an update?
I think we can close it unless you need to bring it back up again first. Something for us to do.
Not from my perspective.
I really don't think so. I think we'll have other things for the list that'll be important. It's being worked on. Again, they had order parts. That's a hold up right now. It's waiting for the parts to come in, and we'll get it scheduled. They'll get it scheduled. It's under Shillington's Water's purview anyway. So.
Okay, thank you.
In terms of the action item process, I think for the most part, we kind of got that to a degree. We just kind of figure out, like, do we automatically just drop them all onto the agenda? Like, how do you want to handle action items going forward? Because I'd prefer not to have to kind of like say, put this on the agenda each time. Like,
yeah, I was thinking about that as we just talked about it. Like, I feel like we should probably just declare like a follow-up date, and if the meeting comes after or close to the follow-up date, like we just add it to the agenda then, instead of like automatically injecting everything in unnecessarily. Like, let's just bring what's relevant at that point in time. Does that make sense?
I think Tanya's been using the meeting dates as the due dates. So basically what you're saying is, like, if it's that meeting date, it just automatically appears on the agenda.
I guess what maybe I was stating it the wrong way. I think like what we talked about before was it would just automatically go to the next meeting date, right? And I think sort of like what you were saying with the crosswalks, like maybe we just like don't be strict about that. Let's just determine what a more reasonable, feasible timeline is, and if that's 4 months out or 6 months out, so be it. And then we'll bring it back to the agenda when we get there.
Okay, but in terms of actually getting them on the agenda, if it's got a due date, it just goes on the agenda, like nobody has to request to put it on the agenda.
I think that sounds reasonable, and I think the original premise of this was to track items, because we had people that brought things and 3 months later they were bringing them again, and it wasn't because somebody wasn't doing their job, it's just, helping us to keep track of things that the people are asking for.
Yeah. But yeah, I like having them, like, we don't necessarily have to dig into anything in
Right.
depth.
Statuses can just be in progress.
Right. We can, that
You
can
know,
be it.
it just stays on there until it's closed. And otherwise, if it's not happening until June, it's, it can be on the agenda, it can just be in progress, update, yeah, something like that. It doesn't have to occupy a lot of time.
Yeah, that's fine. So if everybody's okay with that process, we can close that out. I'll just
Close
do
out the
that.
action items list. Action item?
Yeah, exactly. Public interaction process. I guess that was for you and Tanya to kind of formalize some of the due dates, what we want to put out publicly, yada, 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 the kind of descriptions on here. Do you guys have any update there?
So I did talk to Peter and Patty about sort of our delivery timelines. I think this is a broad item. It's like really many action items. I think in terms of the timelines, I think we've gotten pretty close to good there. We did have some actions taken over the last 2 years where I think we've sort of honed in some of our delivery timelines. We can probably still tighten that up. But then there's other aspects of like, what's the vehicle of delivery, right? Like, I think some of that ties into the digital transformation work we're doing. So, and then there's also like, how do we communicate certain things? I have drafted some initial, documentation. I'll just say that at some point I'll get to a more formalized process. But I think for now, the big rock here is the digital transformation, and I think so. Some of this is going to have to get punted, but I think we can hone in at least like get to a maybe more explicit definition of like what our expectations are around timelines and deliverables of information and stuff like that. So maybe next time we can just zero in on that. Maybe we can split this because there's a lot to unpack.
I think with that, I think the development of the website, the enhancement of that Mark's working on, that will take a big chunk of this. So it's a progress. So.
Should we split like digital transformation into its own? Because I feel like, do we have one there?
Yeah, he's got a website.
Oh, okay.
That item is there.
I'm just blind. Yeah, I guess there's just sort of a dependency. There's some cross-cutting.
Website doesn't really communicate what we're talking about there either. If you, like you said, I think digital transformation and communication is more of the tool. The website is one of the vehicles, but there's sort of push kind of email, notifications and things, electronic things that can be done to communicate with the township residents, and the website's just one. So anyway,
it's a good point.
There's a lot of overlap.
We could just modify the action item that Mark has to say digital transformation instead of website, I guess is kind of what I'm hearing.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, it can be one component, and slash website / digital transformation.
There you go. And then on Pine Hill, it says that was resolved. Does anybody have an update as to what happened there?
I do. We installed that no outlet sign back in February on the 10th. So that is closed out.
Oh, we did.
Beautiful.
I didn't notice it when Is it set off of Route 10 more? Like where?
When you go on Freemanville Road to turn on Pine Hill, it's right there on the corner.
Oh, so if you go through the light and once you make the right turn, it's sitting over there.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, I haven't gone back in there a little bit. All right, yeah, cool. There's one to close out.
So we do have an executive session that we're gonna enter. For those in attendance, I'm just gonna give public reminders now. Feel free to stick around till after the executive session. I'll announce any updates or actions coming out of that afterwards. But for everyone's awareness, we do have a zoning hearing board meeting March 24th at 6. We have a fifth Tuesday meeting of the Board of Commissioners March 31st at 7, and a regular meeting scheduled for April 21st at 7. We have our Planning Commission meeting Tuesday, April 7th at 6 p.m., which is a date change, so just be aware. And then the tax collector and codes department's monthly reports are available on the township's website. So with that, we're going to break for an executive session. Thank you, everyone. And if we see you afterwards, thanks for sticking around. All right. We are just coming back from an executive session where we discussed several personnel issues, public works administration, matters of potential a matter of potential litigation. The only thing we will be acting upon is I am seeking a motion to authorize execution of the agreement with the administrative personnel. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And there we have it. Thank you, everyone. Great night. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second it. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.